You don't need to record an analog to use some seriously valuable advice from Steve Albini. Hey guys, so we had Steve Albini on Pro Studio Live a while back, and I figured today I would revisit that experience and talk about some of the takeaways from that day. Now, Pro Studio Live is a membership-based site, but if you want to see the episode with Steve Albini, I'll put a link down below so that you can check that out if you feel so inclined. In the meantime, here are some of my big takeaways from that day. Number 1, you're providing a service. Steve Albini says the most important thing to remember is that the job is to make a recording. It's not about you, it's not about your ego, it's not even necessarily about your creative vision. You're providing a service. You're an auxiliary player helping this band or company or what have you create their art. So while it's great to add some creativity and offer your opinions and advice, don't get in a fight with the band leader because you think they should do things one way, whereas they have strong feelings about doing something else. In the end, you're just providing a service, and you should concede to the people whose art it is. Number 2, it's okay to stick with your strengths sometimes. Now, Steve Albini works in analog, and he's famous for sticking with analog all these years, despite tremendous pressure in the industry to convert to digital, or at least offer digital in addition to analog as a service. He knows analog, he knows he's good at analog recording, and he's developed a great workflow with analog. He successfully ignores people that bug him about digital. So when you know you're doing something well, don't let people sway you with the latest and greatest. Sometimes the latest and greatest isn't the best option for you. And this kind of ties in with the idea that you can go broke buying new gear and plugins, but if you don't take the time to learn how to use them well and properly, you're basically just hemorrhaging money for no reason. Number 3, carefully consider the medium you're working in before picking one. Steve had a really great point about analog versus digital and how long they last. Tying in with his statement about how the job is to make a recording and that's the most important thing to remember, he reminded us that analog master tapes can sometimes have better longevity than digital. Like, yeah, they get brittle over time and you might have to bake them before listening to them, and you have to be careful about how you store them, but at least you know exactly what audio is on those master tapes. You're not going to try to pull out a master tape years later just to realize you don't have the correct plugin version to bring back a certain effect, or your audio file type is obsolete, or your DAW software isn't even compatible with whatever the original session used. And yeah, you can print stems and stuff, so you don't need to worry about many of the software compatibility issues that might arise when trying to play back an old digital master, but disk damage is also an issue with digital, and CDs actually deteriorate faster than some older analog versions of audio storage. So in some ways, analog audio is a more stable way to store a master of a song for a long period of time, and that's part of why Steve works in analog. So even if his argument doesn't sway you to analog, I certainly haven't made that switch, I still love the idea of considering all aspects of whatever medium you're using before making a commitment. Number 4, prep time is important. Now, we had a discussion about working in a freelance capacity and how important it is to adapt to whatever studio you're currently working in. During this conversation, Steve mentioned to us that when he goes to a new studio, he will often arrive a whole day early for a session just to do prep work. Now, he might have more prep work to do than those of us that work in digital, and it definitely depends on the session. So we might not need to allow a whole day for prep work, but the idea is still an important one. Steve stressed that he does this so that his prep work doesn't eat up time during the session. I think that's great advice. We're providing a service. Don't make your clients wait around while you do all the prep work. It can annoy or piss off the client, or even worse, kill their creative flow. Number 5, inquire about gear. Steve mentioned that when he's looking at a studio's website, before deciding whether to work there, he often inquires with the studio about specific gear that he might want to use. I can see why he does this since he works in analog, and even though a studio might list or have a specific tape machine, for example, that often doesn't mean that the machine actually works. This is another one of his tips that's probably much more valuable for those of us working in analog, but I think it's still valid for the rest of us. I've often worked in studios with whole channels that are broken on, for example, an SSL board, or the studio might list a certain compressor on their website that your client has specifically requested to use. For example, people often request Avalon compressors, and maybe the studio has one, but it might not be currently working. Things break in studios, and with the state the industry is in, it can often take a good amount of time for a studio to fix things. So if it's important, call ahead to check before booking your time. Okay, and that's it for now, but I'll leave you with this fun quote from Steve Albini. When talking about the studio he built, he said, "If you dedicate your life to something, then you too could eventually be in debt for $1 million." So I hope you guys liked this video, and please let me know what you think in the comments below. For today's question, I want to know, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten from a mentor? Please leave your answers in the comments below. So thanks guys. As usual, if you like this video, please watch my other videos or check out my Patreon. I'll be coming out with new videos every other Wednesday, and thanks for watching. Okay. I took my bunny to happy hour and she hopped around and made friends with all the other bunnies, and I was really proud of her because she didn't pick a fight, which is smart because she was the smallest one there. All right, staring contest, go. I can't stare for shit. I burped earlier. I need a haircut. This is disgusting. Okay, I don't know what else. I think I'm done. I'm done. What time is it? It's not too late either. Win.